Welcome back, everybody. Today, this lesson's got the skibbity riz, I believe. I love it. Fred, I don't know that I would do it if it didn't bother you as much as it does. Okay, so we're going to try to approach it this way. Remember, I want two things on your desks currently. You guys have the handout for RJ and Jade. There's a PDF of this thing available on the classroom. Cool. So, right off the bat, we're going to take just a second, and we're going to label, starting at 1, we're going to go all the way down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to stop counting out loud because I think you guys can count. And then I'm going to start at 9 on the other side. So we have 16 things on ours. There will be a couple extra that we'll have to add in somewhere along the way. But do me a favor, once you get these numbered, I do want you to have your notes as well. We're going to mix and match them. Cool. So grab your notebooks. I'll give you guys a second. I'll take a drink because I am parched. So we have this worked out, and you also have your notebooks. So we're going to start with what we looked at yesterday, and I don't think anybody wrote this down, but it looks like Bam Bam, we're actually going to get yours first. Cool. So I'm going to cover the first little part of this. On this numbered little piece here, and the order's going to be wonky, and I'm sorry about that. I'll get us more, we'll see visualizations of this. Where, according to all of this diagram, would you say that the plasma membrane lives? Which number? 11. So, let's check. This is a cell, just for the record. Number 11, I don't think so. I think this is a nucleolus. Pretty sure this is nucleolus. 12 is also not. This whole piece here, who had the nucleus? Somebody in here talked about the nucleus. I think it was Andrew.
Oh, yeah, nucleus.
Okay, here is the nucleus. This is our whole cell. Okay, what's the plasma membrane do? Like, what's its actual primary function that we think of?
Plasma has a nuclear pores that allow larger size.
So careful, you're not giving me the plasma membrane. You're giving me the nuclear envelope. Okay, looking at this, Bam Bam said it. Number 9.
Yeah, is it cell wall?
So we could look at it, part of the cell wall, we'll get there. But this is my plasma membrane that I see happening right here. Now, as we go through this, I wrote a few things yesterday, but I do want to make sure that we have it. I'm going to keep referencing this picture, okay? Right off the bat, our first section, and this is why it's going to be Bam Bam immediately. Our first main section, we're looking at all these structures and organelles. Our first section is our cell structures. So in your notes, I want you to have this as our first main topic, cell structures. Cool. Now, looking at this, there are a million different ways to draw a cell, just in the end, just so you're aware. A lot of different ways that they show up. This is a simplification, a two-dimensional drawing of a cell. Just so you guys can see, we do have three-dimensional value or pictures here, but I don't ever expect us to be able to draw a three-dimensional one. Here's the same picture, just with a different shape. All the same pieces are still here. Now, maybe not all of them, they listed a few more, right? But this is the same cell. I have this big purple glob right here that looks like this big purple glob right here. That's that purple blob, and I see that they match up. Okay, beyond that, Jade and RJ do not get to see it, but we also have, where did I put them?
Oh, right there?
Not the ones I was looking for.
That 3D one right there in the corner?
Not just that one, we have some other ones too. I'll find them because I put them down somewhere because I picked them up and was playing with them yesterday. Oh yeah, check it out. Here's a three-dimensional figure of the same thing. Cool, this is that picture. Now, we will look at these as well, but just so that they can see it, I'll hook it up here. Here it is. That's like the same picture that we have, right? But this is a three-dimensional version of it. Cool. Baller. We will play around, we'll pass them around and stuff, but we'll come back together here. Right off the bat, all of these little things, they are clearly defined with a little region around them, right? these are all of our structures and our organelles. They are membrane. They're surrounded by a thin membrane, not the plasma membrane, but a thin membrane that makes them distinguishable from each other. So right off the bat, the very first thing that we're going to knock out is we're going to talk about cell shape and movement. Okay. Immediately, yesterday we talked about all of the gunk inside, that semi-fluid or jelly-like structure that holds all this stuff together. Does anybody remember what that was referred to? How we referred to all the gunk inside of our cell? That's okay. Our first little piece here is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. And then bam, bam, I'm just going to catch up to where your stuff started, and then I'm going to start pulling stuff from you, okay? Okay, the cytoplasm is the jelly structure. It's like the liquid inside of our cell, the inside of an egg, the inside of a cell. Very nice analogy. From this, I'm just going to real briefly define gel inside cell. Now, right off the bat, on our figure, can you guys see any number here that looks like it might represent the gel inside? Say it again. I don't agree. Okay, the reason I don't agree, and we'll see this word show up, is that big purple thing in the middle.
Is it 16?
That's my nucleus. I like 16. It's hard to see that that's what it's pointing to, but do you guys agree that 16 isn't really pointing to anything?
Yeah.
The fact that it's not pointing to anything specific hooks us up. So all I'm going to do for each of these is I'll change color, but I'm going to put them over here. My cytoplasm is 16. Now, it is a gel inside of the cell that we look at. Now, I want to remind you, which is more complex, first of all, eukaryotes or prokaryotes? Eukaryotes are the complex ones. So, in a eukaryote, which is what we have here, all of the organelles and things are well defined, and I can see them. In a prokaryote, all of the things that we have, the little machines inside of our factory, as a nice analogy, they are not surrounded by membranes. They're just kind of floating around, and it happens right in the cytoplasm. Now, there are some other things that happen within our cytoplasm, but as we look at this, we're going to take one little step further. So beyond cytoplasm, and I'll go back to red just so it doesn't look like I'm changing colors for any particular reason. Remember, I commented on this yesterday. Maybe you don't remember, but that's okay. Initially, when cells were beginning to be developed and looked at and thought about from a biological standpoint, people just kind of thought that all these little organelles floated around. They don't. Within the cytoplasm, there is structure. Now, it is just this big gel area that gets filled. That's fine and dandy. But within the cytoplasm, we also have the cytoskeleton. Okay, now this cytoskeleton, and I'll show you a different picture because it doesn't show up super clear here. Within the cytoskeleton, we have a bunch of protein fibers that work as a way to create, one, a different organelle that we'll look at here in a second, but they create structure. So we'll just say protein fibers, which when we talk about fiber, think like fibers they would use to make clothes. Protein fibers for structure. Now, maybe there's a little bit more that happens here, but we're going to get to it. Okay. I think before we just go through everything and label it and numbers and all that, I think I would like us to see if we can't work it out rather than me just saying, here it is. Cool. All right. This is where I'm leaving off. So right off the bat, bam, bam, what's the first thing that you addressed? Okay, so we have centrioles. All right. Furthermore, bam, bam, what can you tell me about a centriole?
They function as a cell division.
Okay, they help with cell division. That's their main role for them. So just like we had with the cytoplasm, we have a small definition, kind of. As we're looking at this, I'm just going to add a little bit. I'm okay with that first part, bam, bam, love it. These centrioles, they help with cell division. Okay, and this picture is very different. I'm fairly confident that I know where we're looking at. As we go through our centrioles, which I'm good with, I think you might have skipped a couple little things, but we're going to get there. Did you happen to have written down what they're made of?
They're made of what? They're made of microtubes.
Okay, so
Micro.
do you have how many? Do you have how many microtubules they're made of? If not, that's okay. All right, so check it out. These centrioles, they are made of something very specific. So right off the bat, a couple little follow-ups with these. First and foremost, we're going to get the microtubules and microfilaments here in a second, I think. Do you have that stuff? Microtubules and microfilaments?
No, in the book is so.
Okay, so I'll fill in some gaps, and that's okay with me. As we're looking at it, we haven't defined it yet, but we'll say that these are made of 9 microtubules, which just that word itself is kind of ugly. I'm going to say in a ring. Now, we've never used the word microtubule in here. Micro means small. When you see tubule, what do you think of? Tubes. Yeah, 100%. You're absolutely right. Microtubules are just these tubes. You do not have to draw a picture of it. Like, I'm totally cool if you don't. We'll come back here. But what I have is I have 9 little tubes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Ooh, that's way too small. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, if these are a bunch of tubes, they run down like this, right? Like, and I can see that, hey, look, it's a bunch of cylinders that are just running through this thing. Now, if you wanted to push something through this tube, do you think you could? Like, they're hollow. Something could go through it, right? Yeah. These are microtubules. Now, our centrioles, with the understanding that this is what they look like, they're these 9 tubes that just run together, stuff passes through them. It must. So when you're trying to take a cell and split it, you got to pass a bunch of stuff between the original and the new one, right? Centrioles fill that role. They are the transportation. They're the ones that move stuff and make sure that the new cell has all the components necessary. Couple other things about these. These are only in animal cells. You will not find centrioles in a plant. Okay. Bam Bam, is there anything else you would like to say about centrioles? Okay, they're near the nucleus, and we'll take a look at this picture here in just a second. Before I continue, do you want to keep rolling like this, or do you guys want to get up here and tell us about them?
Doesn't matter to me. You keep rolling.
Okay. If and when... You didn't even flinch. That was pretty awesome. Cool. Now, we skipped ahead of this. Bam Bam, I'm going to hit something that you might not have. We have these things called microtubules. So we already saw that those are just little tubes, right? Microtubules. And we'll come together afterward, after we get them all, and we'll find them in this picture. So microtubules and microfilaments. Okay. We've already decided that microtubules seem okay. They're like small tubes. What's a filament?
Sounds so right word.
So what do you, anybody spot a place, I don't know if I took a pen. Anybody think of a place where you see the word filament?
Flame. Restaurants.
A flame, so maybe. I'll tell you, I think of like pretty modern technology. It makes me think of 3D printing. Because when you fill up your 3D printer, you have to fill it up with something, and oftentimes they're called filaments. Okay, now when you think of a filament, and we'll get this defined here real quick, when we're looking at these, I'm just going to say little things about each. Microtubules, they're easy. They're small tubes. Nothing crazy about it. So, small tubes, and these are found all over the cell because when we have to move stuff, it has to travel somewhere, and these are like our little subway stations or our transportation like highways. These are small tubes, but there's a little bit more to it. They are rigid, which means what?
They're sharp.
So rigid, not sharp, although I can see that because you think about the ridge of a mountain. Okay, they're rigid or hard. They're solid. They're like a noodle, like cannoli. Cool. So they're hard, first of all. And then second, what do these do again?
Transport stuff.
Good. Transport. Okay. Microfilaments. As we're looking at these, instead of being tubes, these are long strings. Now, specifically, they're strings of proteins, but filament, I think of a string. So we have a bunch of proteins that can form together to make a small tube called a microtubule, or we have a bunch of these proteins that can come together to just form like long strings. Now, the strings that we use here, they provide structure. So we have long strings, they provide structure, but they're not as hard as our microtubules, which means when we look at the cytoplasm, we obviously have to have a bunch of microtubules kind of scattered around because stuff needs to move between organelles, but we also have all these microfilaments that provide the actual structure and keep things locked in place. However, when they are, like, we have these microfilaments, they help hold structure, but they do move to allow other stuff to move around as needed. So we'll just say allow movement through cell. Now, allow, that's not how you spell movement. Allow movement. Okay, beyond that, we're going to look again at, we'll hit the picture at the end. What else you got for me there, Bam Bam?
Cilia. Oh, for centriole.
Well, you hit centrioles, right? And then you didn't hit these two, but that's okay. What's your next section? Hit it.
What is that? Provide.
Oh my gosh, I promise I know how to spell. Structure, sorry. Yeah, I clearly was just excited to keep talking. Structure. All right. So they allow, or they provide structure. What's next, Bam Bam? We hit centrioles, I like it.
Yeah, next one I got cilia.
You got what?
Cilia.
So cilia and flagella, I imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a bigger section here. For this one, we have these things called cell appendages. Ooh, spelling's not my strong suit. Appendages. Okay. Now, as we look at cell appendages, we're going to see that these happen in two different. Bam Bam, the first one he mentioned, and this will just be a dash, are the cilia. Okay. We have cilia, that's an L. Yep, cilia. Now, this is the plural. Cilium is the one, but you're almost never going to see a single cilium exist. What is a cilia? Or what are the cilia?
It's a short projection that looks like hair.
Short, hair-like projection.
And it's singular and a cilium.
Okay, so a single one would be called a cilium. This is a short, hair-like projection outside of the cell. Okay, now I'm going to draw a small cell. It's always up to you guys if you want to draw these or not. This picture, if we look at it, do you guys see any projections sticking out of my cell?
6.
So 6. Let me go back over and look. Okay, so looking at it, it looks like that little thing does have little hair-like pieces, but are these moving outside of the cell? So I don't see any cilia on this picture, just so you're aware. As we're going through here, if we want a small little picture, I'm just going to draw a small cell. I'm not going to add in the inside stuff. But check it out. It has all these little hairs around the outside. It's like a fuzzy cell is what we can imagine it. Now, I'll tell you, we have these in our bodies. We have a ton of cilia within our bodies. Okay, specifically, we have some in our lungs. We have a lot of these in our lungs. Why might we have cilia in our lungs? What would the point of our lung cells having all these little hair-like things sticking out of it? What would that possibly serve
To
for?
grab onto stuff or like stuff to get caught in.
Love it. Let's keep rolling with that. Andrew says to grab onto stuff. What sort of stuff would you grab onto if you were a cell in your lung?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. it has to grab oxygen and transport it into the cell to make use of it. It happens via our cilia. Okay, Bam Bam, what's the other one?
Next one is flagella.
Okay, we're gonna fix the language, but I agree with you. We have the flagella.
Flagella.
Okay, flagella is what we're after. So here we go. We have cilia that exist. We also have flagella. If you would like me to write the pronunciations with like phonetic pronunciations, we can. Flagella. We have the flagella. Okay, now flagella, as we look at them, they're a little bit different. What's a flagella, Bam Bam?
It's long and less than the cilia, goes with a whip-like motion.
So, same thing, they're projections. So we'll say long projections. And whereas we might have like a ton of little cilium along a cell, these ones typically come in 2 or 3. Long projection, 2 or 3 at a time, outside of cell. Now, they move whip-like. And as we look at these, when we talk about them, it's pretty common that we use like prokaryote type things to look at these, but there are cells within your body that also have flagella. So if I just draw my lazy cell again, here's another cell. It's kind of doing its thing.
Do we draw those cells?
It's up to you if you want to. I see long projections sticking out of the cell right now. These are the what? Be more specific with language. They are the flagella. Okay, now, with this, just to think, what cells in our bodies might have this? We're going to be adults with it, just so you know.
The nose.
The nose.
Our hairs.
So hairs are not flagella. They're way too big because hairs are made of cell. Come on. Hair's made of carrot. And anyway, we'll get into that. Not hair. Okay. We have not talked about reproduction yet. What's the male reproductive cell? Sperm cells. Now, sperm cells swim, right? They have to. Like, they don't physically swim like we do. But if you've ever seen a sperm cell in a microscope or just a picture of one, it's a single cell that has a long tail that moves in a whip-like fashion to swim, just like this. Cool. This is used to transport. Now, both of these things, get crazy, these are made also of our microtubules and microfilaments. Now, I'm not going to draw the picture for you, but we have a microtubule that has 9 and it's round. If you put 2 more inside of it, so if we look at this picture above, and you don't have to change yours, but if you were to have 2 more of these microtubules that run right down the middle, that's what our appendages are made of. Cool. All right. Bam Bam, anything else here?
Oh shoot, my last one is cell wall.
Cell wall. All right. Love it. We have a cell wall. Now, do you specify where you find cell walls?
Plant cells.
Plants and there's one more?
Plant like animals.
Not animals. So humans are animals, remember?
Prokaryote.
Plant cells and prokaryotic cells. You will find cellular wall. Now, looking at this, as we go through, if you think of a cell wall, and I asked you to define it, you're probably going to get it. What's a wall? It's a structure. Is a wall soft or is a wall hard?
Hard.
Okay, instead of hard, can I say rigid? Okay, so we'll say it is a thick, rigid structure. And let's just think a little bit more here. If I'm a plant cell and I need to protect myself, my plasma membrane is a pretty at-risk point because it's not super hard. Should my cell wall be outside or inside the plasma membrane? Outside. We need to protect the plasma membrane. So there will be transport proteins that work to get stuff through here, but we need to protect the cell, and the plasma membrane doesn't do a good job of that. So as we're looking at this is a thick, rigid structure made of fibers. outside of the plasma membrane. And remember, I have a shorthand for plasma membrane. I'm just going to use this every time. Plasmem. Okay. Now, these things serve a huge purpose. One, they help protect the plant. But if you have a bunch of little rectangles that are really strong and rigid, they're going to give structure to a plant, right? Plants are crunchy. There's several reasons for that, but one of them is this cellular wall that we deal with. As we're looking at it, these things provide structure and protection. But let's focus on the structure first. These are like the bricks, is essentially how I think of it. If we think of each little cell as a brick and we build it up. Now, give me a small plant that you know of.
Dandelions?
Dandelions are pretty small plants. Now they have a big bulb at top, right? Does every dandelion you've ever seen just lay down because the bulb is heavy? No, it stands up straight. Why do you think it stands up straight? Because the cell wall. 100% is because of the cell wall. It is responsible for blades of grass standing up straight. Tiny, tiny blades of grass. Turns out, what's the biggest plant you can think of?
Sunflowers.
I can think of something bigger than a sunflower.
Trees.
Trees. Redwood trees that stand like hundreds and hundreds of feet tall. Also responsible for that structure is the cellular wall. So, I'm just going to say grass to redwoods, which those are like the really big trees. Like huge, huge things get structure from this. Now, beyond that, in plants, what really gives our plants that crunchiness is the cell wall, but there's something more specific. This, in plants, is going to say it is made of carbohydrates, or a carbohydrate, called, what makes plants green?
Oh, I think I have that.
You'll have it. Were you energy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Chromoplast.
So chromoplasts are responsible for some. Chloroplast is what makes plants, regular plants, green, like leaves and such. These things, have you guys seen the word cellulose?
Yeah.
Cellulose is the fiber in a plant that is responsible for this, the carbohydrate that's responsible for your cell wall. It's the crunchy maker. Okay, in plants, and I'm just going to say plants here, made of a carb called this. I don't know why I put parentheses around it. In plants. Now, without going too crazy into the detail, because cellulose is something that you'll see again, guaranteed, it's worth mentioning this is a plant version of it. What else has a cell wall? Plants and prokaryotes. So, in a prokaryote, the cell wall is not made of cellulose because prokaryotes are not plants. In a prokaryote, we're not going to write it down. Peptidoglycan. Peptid, like the peptid bonds that we had seen through the peptide groups. We're not going into chemistry, but it's a word that we have seen. It's made of a different thing, but it serves the same function in a prokaryote. Okay, I think that that is everything that we have here. First little challenge. I'm going to pause mine. I want you guys, with the understanding that this is a animal cell that we're looking at first, are you ever going to put a cell wall on this? I don't think so. Working together, I want us to see, and you guys first, I'm going to give you a minute, pool together, see how many of these things you can find on this cell. I'll give us a minute. Cool. Looking at it, let's just see here. Is there, and we didn't put numbers on any of these other ones, right? Let's see here. We can probably label another one right off the bat. The cytoplasm is 16. Okay. Whoa, I'm not showing. Sorry. The cytoplasm is number 16. Do you see any fibery looking things within? Strings somewhere. Where? I guess you can't point to the number. So I think we're missing one little piece, right? So check it out. Oh, I see a couple blue strings, right? What do you think these are? They're thin fibers within the cytoplasm.
Short hair cilia?
They're not our cilia because those are appendages that stick outside of the cell. Say it again.
Oh,
So flagella, again, are also appendages. You would find them outside of the cell. They have to poke outward to be one of those appendages. However, I think, ooh, we've already written it today.
Microfilaments?
Hey, look at this. We're going to add number 17 right here. We have a microfilament, and I can see it. Now, in reality, they are much more numerous than this. This is, I mean, it's always going to be tough to draw it. So I'm going to come here, microfilament. I'm going to put 17 right underneath of it. We had to add one. That's all right. I can also identify microtubules here. And they're going to be kind of tough to see, but they hook it up because they show you two different views of it. Where do you see something that looks like a thin tube that forms a cylinder? Anywhere on this?
8?
8?
Yeah. 8 or 7?
Ooh. I like number 7. I think I'm more convinced with number 7, right?
7.
Because I can see that it is that tube, and then it shows me the side view of it where it looks like a little tube running sideways.
Oh.
What are these then? So not quite our centriole.
Microtubules?
These are microtubules. Okay. We said number 7, right? Okay. So we are about out of time. Tomorrow, who did we have with cell activities? It was Andrew, right?
Yeah.
My hope is that tomorrow we can hear from Andrew about energy and the nucleus. And then who had proteins? I think you're going to be able to tell us about ribosomes and the endoplasmic reticulum. Baller. If you want to check the eggs before you go, they're over there. If not, they'll be over there tomorrow still, as long as I don't get too hungry at lunch.